It's recording. Anyways, you know, it's, I would say that every time you start something new, you always kind of botch it first attempt. I think everyone's gone through that. They try something new for the first time, they botch it, and that's kind of what I did. Especially when making like stuff like pancakes, which is, you have to do the thing right, or otherwise you kind of just botch it, which is what I kind of did. But I'm also kind of proud of myself because I did surprisingly well. So this is a galette, traditional Western French food with buckwheat. I think I'm pretty sure it is buckwheat. 2 seconds. Up. Yeah, it is buckwheat. I was right. Which, it's more of a flour than it is a type of wheat, if I remember correctly. The reason why the main ingredient in this is buckwheat, it's because it was more popular. I'd say it's easier to grow in the part of France that this dish originally comes from. And I think also with the introduction of traditional wheat, it was easier to make stuff like what would become crepe, or which is the ancestor. There we go. The ancestor of pancakes. They come from Western France because they apply the same technique as you would with buckwheat to wheat, the same cooking kind of method, and it created crepes, which usually have a variety of sweet stuff added to it: salted caramel, sugar and butter, which is basically just which is just salted caramel with like twice the amount of ingredients, but yeah, or later, chocolate and other stuff like that, and like including what's it called? Oh Lord, fucking Christ, it's on the tip of my tongue. Including maple syrup. There we go. Including maple syrup, which is kind of another popular addition to the meal, to what would be a crepe and also pancakes. But the thing is that when you're making, essentially, crepe and mainly galette though, are, how to say, very kind of meal of the people type thing, because it takes eggs, mainly buckwheat that you kind of mix and with loads of ingredients. I kind of forget the recipe. I had it in head, but you basically create the sauce that would create the crepe, the galette, and then you put some eggs, some cheese, some ham, sometimes some mushrooms, eggs as well that you can add, a bunch of other things as well that people create their own recipes type thing. And one thing that is like kind of unique to, I think, something that's somewhat unique to my area of Western France, Brittany, that's the westernmost peninsula of France. One thing that's kind of, I feel, unique to that area of France is something called galette saucisse, where you essentially take a galette or two, one or two layers of galettes, and you take a sausage that's from the area, which is mainly meat and actually not fat, unlike a lot of sausages, where it's mainly the pig meat that you use. And actually, that shit is good. I've always loved having that shit whenever I go back to Brittany. And I fucking love it because it feels easy enough to make. All you need is to make all you need to do is have that specific type of sausage, have some condiments. I always have mustard with it, like that when I do have condiments. But yeah, mustard's the condiment to go. You have a big, nice sausage. That sounds gay. But I mean, look, I wouldn't suck a man's dick, but that's another story for maybe another time. And, basically, you have the sausage, 1 or 2 layers of get-it wrapped around it, and you just have it like that, you know? Quick, easy meal, that's fucking great. Honestly, if any other people, if first of all, if there are people watching this video, and if you do ever decide to visit France, visit Brittany. It's such a pretty area. Especially, like, I've never been to the south coast. I have been to the north coast, because that's where my family is. Either in eastern Brittany or the north coast. But on the north coast, there's basically a massive hiking, basically from coast to coast, basically. From the north coast to the south coast. There's this GR, or Grande Randonnée, or big hike, which is kind of like the one, basically, which the GRs are something, kind of like the equivalent to, basically, it's something made by the French Federation of Hiking. Yeah, the French Hiking Federation, which is called the FF Randonnée, not to be confused with FFR, which is the Rugby Federation, French Federation of Rugby. But that's another stuff. But the thing is that what's it called? But there's a GR34. There's like the numbers don't really make sense. But essentially, it's something that goes from basically Brittany's northeast, northeast coast, all the way to the southeast coast, and it used to be, before it became a hiking trail in like the 60s or something, 60s or 70s, it was, before the advent of radar and all that, before that became really used, it used to be an area that the border guards of Brittany used to hike. They used to hike that. Basically, that was their job, to check if there's any smuggling happening or stuff like that, before the advent of, as I just said, of radar and all that. And then when it happened, when radar became easier to manufacture and not that inconvenient to use, the job just fell off, like, quite quickly. But then people in the 60s and late 60s, early 70s started hiking the trail of basically the border guard. It's called the Chemin des Douaniers, or the path of the, what's it called? Or the path of the border patrol. And what they'd have is like a bivvy, not really a bivvy, but more of like a bedroll, a rifle and some ropes, from what I remember researching. And frankly, I think it's quite an interesting thing. And essentially, yeah. And then, yeah, in the 60s and 70s, I think in like 1968 or something, people started hiking that trail and trying to get it as a proper maintained hiking trail, which it eventually did become one. And what actually makes it interesting is that it's, at least the north coast, I know that for sure, it's fucking magnificent. First, you actually, on the first part of the north, or at least if you decide to go from north to south, like, you know, if you go from northeast to southeast, you'll start off with the Emerald Coast, because the waters are basically, in sunny weather, emerald green. And then there's the, something called the Côte de Granit Rose, or I think it's Pink Granite Coast. Yeah, the pink granite coast, where essentially when you look on the ground itself, you'll see a lot of pink granite, which is honestly magnificent. Which is like, but that's one thing France does a lot. We have a lot of like, we have a French Federation of Hiking, which is all these, we have a bunch of federations, the French Fencing Federation, the French Football Federation, the French Rugby Federation that I previously mentioned, but a bunch of stuff like that. And yeah, that's the thing. The, what's it called? The French Fencing Federation, or the French Hiking, Federation, kind of exists to, how to say, basically try and encourage hiking, per se. And it's also the reason why, if you've ever been in the Star Wars niche, because at the time I was, you'll know that the French Fencing Federation made lightsaber duels an official kind of subclass, like kind of sub-sport of fencing, to try and encourage younger people to come do fencing, because that, like, despite all of France's flaws, there are still a lot of good things. Nothing is black and white, you know. Everything, like, I like to tell myself that nothing's in black and white, but everything's in colour, because not everything is simple. Most things are that deep, you know. That's the thing. Most things are that deep. Don't listen to the people say it's not that deep. It is that deep, and you should think about it. We should think. Why should we think? Because, like, I feel like modern society is kind of making you not think. So, just try and enjoy stuff. Try and enjoy going to see the sunrise or going to see the sunset. Just try and go and enjoy those things. Personally, I'd go enjoy a sunrise or a sunset if I didn't live in a fucking valley, you know. Because right now, I know you definitely can't see, but let me try and get the brightness of the camera. No, it doesn't do shit. But essentially, outside there, it's about as grey can be, you know. But yeah, so basically, I like, and yeah, it's just like something I really kind of always considered normal. I guess also what I'm thinking about. But yeah, like stuff like the French Hiking Federation is normal for me. Like all these French federations are kind of normal to me. While other countries, also yeah, the French football, it's not American football but soccer for Americans. And the thing is we do actually, a local town near me has an American football team called the Black Panthers, which I always thought was kind of interesting because it's not something you see every day. But yeah, I've always enjoyed the fact that France has kind of these federations, despite all of the fucking flaws about this country. I still think that the French federations to try and promote sports is honestly great. Heavily recommended, you know. So yeah, cheerio.